Trump broke the evolutionary transition from capitalism to another system. And so Bilderberg asked the key question, what do we do in the current situation? Because the so-called anthropological transition is not such an abstract idea, because it has become quite clear that an evolutionary transition to post-capitalism by itself will not work. And according to Bilderberg, we need a revolutionary transition. And the revolutionary transition implies breaking people's consciousness, establishing control over social networks, in other words, over non-material factors of production. And I will remind you of something else, that back in 2010, Jacques Attali, which is globalist ideologue, he said when asked, what does it take to create a new world order at the Bilderberg conference? He said, a triggering event. And they said, what, war? And he said, no, maybe pandemic.
Yeah, I was about to say, COVID was about locking you down, training you're not essential, preparing the new dark age.
And Trump represents a completely different ruling class. Trump was never an isolationist. He's not a nationalist. He's a globalist, but he's not an ultra-globalist. And the difference between ultra-globalism and globalism, globalists believe that the state should remain, but it should be controlled by the structures like International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, et cetera, et cetera. But the state remain. And therefore, the industry must remain. The middle class that feeds this segment must remain. And on the other hand, the ultra-globalists, the Schwabs, the Brzezinskis, the Kissingers.
They're the depopulationists, the transhumanists that want to overturn the entire human model.
Well, exactly. And people behind, they think that the state should no longer exist. They don't need the state anymore. And that the world should consist of 5 or 6 different corporations like the West and East Indian companies. In other words, going to the concept of one world company limited, corporations that have more power than any government on the planet, as was discussed in the 1968 Bilderberg conference in Montreal in Canada. And so today we have Amazon, Vanguard Group, BlackRock, et cetera. And this is the tip of the visible part of this pyramid of power. And so these two groups collided. And Trump broke the evolutionary transition from capitalism to another system. And so Bilderberg asked the key question, what do we do in the current situation? Because the so-called anthropological transition is not such an abstract idea, because it has become quite clear that an evolutionary transition to post-capitalism by itself will not work. And according to Bilderberg, we need a revolutionary transition. And the revolutionary transition implies breaking people's consciousness, establishing control over social networks, in other words, over non-material factors of production. And I will remind you of something else, that back in 2010, Jacques Attali, which is globalist ideologue, he said when asked, what does it take to create a new world order at the Bilderberg conference? He said, a triggering event. And they said, what, war? And he said, no, maybe pandemic.
Yeah, I was about to say, COVID was about locking you down, training you're not essential, preparing the new dark age.
I want to remind you that back in 2013, before COVID, there was a swine flu pandemic. That was the first thing. It was a test. It failed because the people running the test, they were afraid, so it was at a limited range. But in 2018, Bilderberg decided a revolutionary new approach was needed. And so they decided two things. Because Trump literally had blocked a revolutionary transition through the Atlantic and Pacific Unions. A coup was needed in the United States, and Trump needed to be removed. But Trump could only be eliminated by breaking the social and political system of the United States, which he did to himself. And the repercussions of that change, Alex, we're seeing it right now. What is happening is a transition to post-capitalism, but not according to Marxism. This transition is not made by the proletariat and by the oppressed, but by the ruling layer of the bourgeois, or rather by almost post-bourgeois society itself. And in fact, what we see in the West, not only in the United States, but
generally, an elite war against humanity and energy and production, and it's a depopulation.
Exactly, which is part of the depopulation. You need to get rid of the middle class. And all over the world, we're witnessing the erosion of the middle class. And now there's a rise in food prices, energy, that's going to kill the middle class, okay? And so you'll have two different kinds of people. You have one will control people's social media opinions, and that's the main object of appropriation. But we have a problem here. These people who control finances and social networks, okay, again, they're not a material factor of production. So social networks are behavior, for example. So the elite control social media, they control finance, but there's still a lot of small and medium-sized businesses that have a little bit of private ownership. And if we put all of these people together, even in America, small and medium-sized businesses, you're talking about a lot of money that if need to, if these companies join forces, they can put up a very strong front against big corporations.
That's right. They want no opposition, and that's why they want the total shutdown of any independent small operations. That's what the social credit score and all the social engineering and the ESGs are about. I am making this announcement on Tuesday, June 10th, 2025. That means you have until this Sunday, June 15th, to get the best deal ever on our incredible methylene blue capsules that have high quality vitamin C to supercharge it into the cells. You can get 2 bottles already discounted and get a free bottle of our best selling Irish sea moss capsules absolutely free. And until Sunday night, you can lock in 50% off on any future order of the methylene blue capsules at 50% off. Become a subscriber. You can cancel anytime, but as long as you're a subscriber, 50% off in perpetuity, and they hold it back for you so it never sells out. These are incredible products. The rave reviews are amazing. Here's one of the newest reviews, but be sure to take advantage of this because it also funds our operation at this critical time. Thank you so much for your support. Be sure and go now to thealexjonestore.com for this supplement and many others.